So let's boom.
It's happening. So we'll come in hot here. I'm recording now. So I can't believe you didn't like the Batman. Honestly.
Is that what came up on the 20th? So all right. So the Batman, probably one of the best filmed Batmans out there as far as the look. It's that detective noir. It's real stuff. It is no gadgetry for the most part. It's the Batman version of the Mandalorian, pretty much. That was, I think the coolest part was the shield or the bat being used as a knife or a machete.
Right.
Wasn't too impressed. I like the foreshadowing. Wasn't too impressed with the Batmobile. I mean, I get it. I think
it's an in-process thing for the Batmobile. Like this is like his first go
right
at a Batmobile, and I thought it was interesting. And also, like, I agree with you. Cinematography was spot on, very much fitting. I thought that, like, you probably could have cut 20, 25 minutes out of there. Oh, and honestly, I would have got rid of that post-credit scene. Like that's absolutely not necessary.
So the post-credit, well, not the post-credit scene, because I guess DC does
or whatever
but when they were in the asylum,
yeah,
that should have been a post-credit scene because it doesn't have nothing to do with the movie, right?
Right.
If Batman had a half second more urgency when he was opening up his notes, it would have took off like 15 minutes off the movie, just that by itself, right?
Yeah. And I think that they maybe went one too far with the Riddler's like it felt like it just like and there's another and it was like you can keep me there like tense for a while, but then it's like, really, there's another one, like but there's another level to this, which I thought was generally pretty good.
Was much better as a Batman, and I think that anybody really would have given him credit for, without seeing it. I think going into it, his roles before, and yes, we always talk about the vampires, right? But right. I think going into it, he played the role really good. I think where it fell flat for me is, and this is why this actor, which I absolutely hate, this is another sponsor I'm probably gonna lose, but this actor, which I absolutely hate, right? But I think he is the best Batman, even better than Michael Keaton's Batman, right? Which is Ben Affleck's Batman. And the reason why is because Ben Affleck is the best freaking Bruce Wayne.
Right.
And even when he's Bruce Wayne, he's still Batman as Bruce Wayne, right? And so, like, he is the Bruce Wayne that I think that if you found him inside of an alley,
right,
as Bruce Wayne, he would beat you up, right?
Right. I think that what was really great about this particular movie was that they made it clear that he's more comfortable as Batman, and Batman is his real personality,
right?
As opposed to Bruce Wayne. There were some things I really liked about it. Oh, you know what? We're recording. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett. I'm here with LeightonD. It's been a while since you've been on the show.
Yes, it's been a while, and that's how we do. We do a rolling start like the Daytona 500. Right, we coming hot, right? Oh, speaking of coming in hot, before we get started, tickets aren't for sale yet, but next month, Top Gun 2.
Oh man, I nearly lost it in the movie theater when I recently saw the latest trailer, and my wife and I just looked at each other like, yeah,
it's finally happening.
Yeah, it's finally happening. It is finally happening. And I'm so excited. And I had seen somebody on TikTok commenting on the sound from the first movie and like how great the sound mixing was, and it won an Oscar. And they were saying I watched it in an Atmos theater or whatever, like with the best sound. And I was like, have you ever watched it on the deck of an aircraft carrier? Because I
have. and what's so funny is this, like, in the little photography moment of the whole entire, because when I was a cool kid, I used to live that life. But of all the things that jumped out at me in the trailer was the highly retouched photo
of Val
Admiral Val
Kilmer.
Kilmer. Yes.
Kazansky, Admiral Kazansky.
looking like looking like the Iceman in the photo,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah,
was
for sure. I mean, cinematography wise, like that looks, just the fact that they're in the jump seat, whatever the back seat, like the
right.
actual taking off and from the aircraft carrier and the stuff is like, it's nuts. It's just nuts.
And I
All
think
right.
the whole thing is filmed in IMAX too, so I think that's one thing that makes it a little bit better. I think they're using
Crazy.
IMAX cameras for the whole thing.
Well, we have a new feature on the show. We're going to get into really quick here. It's called the Dice Breaker. Choose a little quick topic. It's a 7, and that means what is the worst photography related purchase or investment you've ever made?
Oh, that is easy. The Arsenal.
The Arsenal. Oh, the remote.
The little remote that is, I mean, considering that's the first thing, and I've bought a lot of gear. I bought a lot of things that I would probably never buy again, but that is the one that I have with vitriol. Like, I hate the thing so much that I would not even sell it. And people are looking for this thing on the market, right? It never really did what it was capable to do on a scale of 1 to 10. If you're a photographer on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being, freaking, what's the guy name? The guy with the black and white that went, Ansel Adams,
Yes.
right? Right.
Yes, that guy.
Or 1 being like some kind of cartoon character. The Arsenal, if you're over a level 2, it doesn't help you. Things that it was supposed to do were like time lapse, was overall composition, to be able to do HDR in camera, and kind of do some all that stuff most of the cameras do now anyway. And
right.
It just, and then the thing about it is they have an Arsenal too,
right? They've already moved on.
So it's that's a sponsor that I don't want, so your product sucks.
I many years ago, I still have it, and I liked it as the Cam Ranger, which works very well. No, it's like a little plug-in.
Remote. It's a remote tether. You can use, like, a lot of real estate guys use it to put on post and put the camera.
Yeah, it's a little dongle like thing that plugs into your camera, and you get, like, from your phone or computer or your tablet, total control. They have a rotating tripod head, so you can do astrophotography. I don't have that, or like real estate stuff to do like 360 panoramas real estate. But back then, and this is before like a lot of cameras had this stuff built in, you could do focus stacking, you could do time lapse stuff, you could do like timed bursts, and obviously change all your settings. But also it was for like before you had the ability to, like, we had cameras that had Wi-Fi connection. You get a live view, and you're watching your stuff. You could, like, record. If your camera does video, you can record video of yourself. I was like, okay, this is how I can do self-portraits and video and stuff for like materials without a camera that that has that Wi-Fi connection. Awesome. Okay, so no Arsenal. Do not buy the Arsenal.
Yeah.
So we were going over some topics to discuss today. You just went to WPPI. And for people who are not familiar, that is the Wedding Photographers and Wedding and Portrait Photographers International Conference.
Yes, and this year was the end of February, beginning of March that week. I'll cut the chase early. Next year is just the first week of March, so this is like they moved it over 1 week. I went back in August. It was the first time, because for those of you that attend Photo Plus Expo, whatever, PB, right? In New York, it's been canceled for the past couple of years. And that normally takes place in August. This year, or last year, they did the WPPI in August instead, kind of as a welcome back. And then they did the WPPI this past early spring, which was really nice. I think I don't want to put out the numbers, but from what I've seen, there was a lot more photographers there, probably in the neighborhood of anywhere between 8 to 12,000, which is respectable, and that's including the expo show. The expo show, which says a lot, because the expo was empty. From Nikon had like a booth about as big as my bedroom. Canon wasn't there at all, and Canon usually takes up a lot of real estate.
Yeah.
Fuji was there as a kiosk, and what's the other big camera manufacturer? Nikon, Sony, right?
Sony.
How do I forget?
How do you forget Sony?
Right?
They're
They
constantly
were
talking about themselves.
exactly, they weren't there, and Bay Photo, and but the thing about it is, even with there was more vendors there than there were in August. Um, One thing I like about WPPI, it gives me a good grasp, and I'm pretty sure that the PPA does this as well. It gives me a good grasp on where the industry is going, and
Right.
how, not just with the print competition. The print competition this year was amazing. It is probably one of the best print competitions that I've seen, and I regret not entering this year. They have made it easier for photographers to join in, because now Graphic Studio is their print partner. I think that's some drug deal between Jerry, Jerry G and Graphy, but you can now send your images direct to Graphy,
And they'll print them out.
and they'll not only print them, but they'll ship them and put them over there to Vegas. So that all you got to do is just enter, buy your money, send it to Graphy, and it's done, right?
Yeah, it used to be such a hassle to like, oh, it's got to be, and it's got to be on like this type of like backing, and you got to make sure that it gets here. It's like, just having some sort of centralized like
Yeah, you can still do it your own way. And like the Uline boxes are expensive. Like for whatever reason, I guess Uline knows that only photographers use these types of boxes or whatever. So they charge like, $180 for a box to hold 3 pictures, because like photographers will buy anything. So with
Yes.
good speakers, um, I'm I wish it went back to the format that it was a few years ago, when the last year that they were at the MGM, where you can buy your entire week for like $500 or whatever it is as an upgrade, and then go take
Right.
a couple master classes and stuff like that. And if they were sold
Yeah,
out,
they had a lot more, like you could just pay like one flat fee and get a, like, it wasn't everything, but it was enough things like to keep you really busy for the week.
This is more a la carte. Business wise, it makes sense. But I
I
think that
think,
you lose your senior photographers when you do that.
yeah, I think that maybe they're still like what you were saying with, as far as Canon and Nikon not being like totally present there. I think we're kind of waiting to see how things are going to play out. And maybe now that they saw, like you said, you had a lot of photographers, 8 to 12,000 people showing up. They know that there's actually, there are going to be people there. They maybe didn't want to like invest a bunch of money and be like, well, what's going to happen? Like if nobody shows up, then we've wasted a bunch of money. So hopefully, things turn around now. Like they see that the interest is there to put more of an investment into it, and hopefully changing the payment for access to programs back to that, like more of a having a comprehensive package that you can get to like, get more stuff out of the week. It's supposed to like, I'm just going to get each individual thing. No, I never like that for anything.
Or like, and maybe do a hybrid. Like if you sign up earlier, you get the full package,
Right.
and then
Reward
after that
you.
time, it's a la carte.
Reward people for early booking, which as a photographer always been my, as a business owner, reward people for booking early and not for last minute stuff. So yeah, I think that would be a good model. Did you learn anything interesting? Did you like?
Let me see. What did I learn? I learned not to eat yellow snow. No. So what's so funny, during this time at WPPI, I kind of crushed two birds with one stone. Kind of segue here. And what it was that the week before WPPI was a boutique fashion week, and boutique is spelled, for those who are listening, instead of using a U, they use a V where a U is going to be at, but it's still pronounced boutique. But it makes it very, very interesting. This was their 5th fashion week. They partnered with a company called Goorin, and the hat that I have
Uh-huh.
on is one of their farm trucker hats. But I have been rocking Gorins for 10 years now, since
Yeah.
2012. They are phenomenal hats. They're over 100 years old, family type thing. But anyway, and why I like their hats is because, and their company is always changing, trying to find something different, and it's trying to become part of the culture. And so like I even got my first finally true red-blooded American cowboy hat, right? And it looks like Dwight Yoakam. I want to do a shoot this weekend in LA with it, but it kind of has a Dwight Yoakam type feel,
Oh
right?
yeah, like a big white. Is it like a big white wide brim or?
So it's not white, it's a black hat though, right?
Yeah.
But it is a curl side. Like if you know what,
Yeah.
picture Dwight Yoakam hat black, not so much Toby Keith because he has a lot of glitz and glamour on it.
Yeah.
But and the thing about it is it has, this is gonna be profane for you people that have dirty minds. But a good thing about having a dude wearing a big black hat is that under that big black hat is a nice size cock. And what I mean that is that like there's a rooster on the inside of it that says cock on it, on the line, all right? I would show it to you, but it's in the car, right? So, and if those who know Gorin know that's the trademark.
I'm a huge fan. We're both like Gorin fans. I've been wearing Gorin hats since probably I think 2010, maybe before that. Like I wear them at weddings. Like people would always talk about. I wore them at weddings because I'm pasty, like Scottish, English, German guy,
Right.
and can't deal with a lot of like sunlight. So I would always be wearing like rocking my Gorin like more of a fedora-y type hats.
Fedoras on the wall.
But as soon as I saw that picture in your Instagram feed, I was like, "What? You're shooting for Gorin? Did you get a hat?"
Oh man, got a lot of hat. And Ben Gorin is a great guy. Like Ben, one thing I like about it is that when you're the head of the company and you get your hands just as dirty, when we're doing this desert shoot, he's moving furniture, he's doing this, he's organizing, he's styling, right? It was actually the hat at the a la King. It was actually that hat that I saw on Ben Gorin first. And I'm like, I got to get that hat, right? Because my first hat was a stovepipe. It's called the White Rabbit, right? And so I've had, like I said, it's between Gorin and here comes a name drop, Hold Fast Gear, right?
Yes.
I have like a couple Hold Fast Gear solos. Their products are so good that as a photographer, and I've always told my proteges, the most important part about being a professional photographer is looking like a professional photographer.
Exactly.
Because
and those hold fast, man, they make you. It's a step up.
And you'll shoot a wedding, and as you're shooting this wedding, you're doing all these angles, but because you had your Hold Fast Gear looking like True Detective or whatever going on there, they'll somebody will come up to you, and we know this from back in the shooting rolls of film. Man, your pictures are so good. You're such a great photographer. Wait till you find out 3 weeks from now that these are underexposed.
I spent a lot of time in Lightroom on these. Yeah, it's I always get the because I wear a vest a lot at weddings. So people be like, "You look like Doc Holliday," and I'm like, "I am." There are probably 2 Doc Hollidays in me, but I'm definitely not a skinny lunger. But yeah, I like you always get the gun shooter comments with the hold fast. Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
Matt, like I said, Matt has been pretty good. And what I like about Matt, the same thing with Ben, they've been pretty good, not only keeping their lines exclusive to the quality they produce, but making small batches of small runs of certain things that are
people
going
really want.
They really want. Like, and I know that you're recording on audio, but for my folks, this was my first a moneymaker. I mean, I got another moneymaker, my All American, which is red, white. Well, it's actually just red and blue, but it has a flag on it. And when I'm down south, they love it. But this is
the snakeskin or
snakeskin, right? With the bridal leather on the inside, so it's fully finished. And he did warn me. He did tell me that it's going to take. It took about a year and a half for this to really
break in
supple. But this right now, I think I got this back in 2014 or 15, and it's in great condition. I have
all my stuff is still like really. I mean, I've had the moneymaker for a long time. My solo is in great condition. I have the Solo that I can like attach my dog leash onto. Um, but I talked to him for a while because I was like, yeah, I didn't know whether I should bring it up. His little trivia here: hold fast with the bowl, the insignia is actually a Scottish clan like motto and insignia, and I was like, it's actually related to my family's my sect of that family has a different motto and insignia, but like that's the main one. And I was like, is this from, like, I'm just curious, did you just see this and liked it, or is this somehow related? He's like, oh no, that is actually where it comes from. So it's the McLeods.
Like Duncan's or Connors?
It's more of a Connor.
Okay, all right. Some people will get that, like, other people.
Yeah. Well, it's if there's another podcast I can go on and be a guest to talk about Highlander. I think I've been on 3 now. And somebody actually wanted to line me up to do another one. So who knows? Maybe a 4th is coming.
Like I said, if Goorin wasn't stealing all my money, Matt probably would, because he like I saw Kenny Kim, I think that's his name, Kenny Kim,
yes,
photographer out of Chicago. He had one of the stormtroopers on, right? And the stormtrooper is awesome, right? And then Kaneo out of DC, he has a couple of them, right? So it's like these. I want him to make me one though, if Matt's listening. I've been asking him for some years, so I know this. I need a black, yellow, or gold, and green Solo moneymaker. I'll even do a duel with the bolts, right? Like a Jamaican moneymaker, right? And you put some bolts on it for like Hussein, right? Maybe a couple of little palm trees, and then a Rasta or a lion. A lion would be great, because then that is the whole Rasta type thing. And
I'll have to tag Matt in the social media, so hopefully he'll listen and he'll be getting that.
That's it, right? That's my. But your product placement, there we go, product placement. So, but
Matt wants to sponsor the podcast. He's more than welcome.
But so got a chance to do their fashion week. Was amazing, because I forgot how much I enjoyed not just doing, because I did LA Fashion Week last year, as I was testing out the GFX to see how it would work with a little bit more fast moving, even using smaller files. I did this backstage, and I forgot how much I missed talking to the designers, talking to the makeup artists, the models, and everybody backstage, and the hustle and bustle and the hurry and wait. It's a different kind of vibe compared to doing a wedding, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of creative people doing their thing in a very small area, and there's so many stories. And I used to shoot, well, sometimes still shoot fashion shows, and there was always like kind of like even the behind the scenes, like waiting to I would do behind the scenes stuff, and not shooting out front, like getting like the backstage shots of like the models just like waiting. And the stuff is like, I love that stuff. I think Ramona Caveza, I did one for them, and they actually took one of those and printed it out in their flagship office, like put it on a wall, like a whole wall for one of the backstage shots. It's great.
So I'm not sure if you know who Art Swangsang is. He is a BenQ ambassador. Art is Right is his YouTube channel. He used to be a professor at one of the colleges up there in LA. And why I mentioned his name. So there I was at LA Fashion Week last October. And so if you're ever in the pit at some fashion weeks, there's a lot of photographers, elbow to elbows. You see the old guys, and when I said old guys, I'm not talking about old in age, the guys that are there every week, every year, or every twice a year, because they got their own little area section, the best seats in the house.
It's taped off.
Everything, right? So everybody's like, oh, I know you, you look familiar. And I'm like, no, you guys don't know me because I've never been here before, right? And like, I got that like 3 or 4 times. I get that all the time, right? Because I look like, I think I look like probably Ken Griffey Jr. or something like that, I don't know, right? And so guy comes up to me, young guy, right? Good looking young guy, like a short Antonio Banderas type guy, right? And he's like, I know you, right? I'm like, you know, he's like, no, I know you from college. And I'm like, whoa, right?
Wait a second.
I'm like, I'm not that kind of sugar daddy. No. I was like, he's like, I know you from college. He's like, you spoke to my class. And as soon as he said that, I was like, this is last year now. I was like, you mean 2015 in Vegas? He's like, yes, you remember. And I'm like, no, I don't remember you, but I remember speaking to a class. And the guy's name's Pablo, Images by Pablo on Instagram. He was one of our students in 2015. He is now doing a lot of sports photography for the Clippers, for the LA Galaxy, I guess, or whatever their MLS team
Yeah.
is, and doing a lot of stuff.
Galaxy. Yeah.
Right. And and like he's shooting weddings and stuff like that. And my joke to him is like, after telling you all of this, I think it's Cabrera is his name, Pablo Cabrera. It's like, after telling you all of this, you still decided to do photography, right? Like, obviously, I didn't do a good enough job. But guy is an amazing guy. It was a great guy, and it was amazing seeing somebody from 7 years ago, right? That you don't realize who you talk to, or as photographers,
how you impact them.
Yeah, we take pictures all the time, and as wedding photographers, like, one of the things I used to love about wedding photography was that, this is going to sound morbid, but like when 5, 10, 15, 20, like 15 years, I'm not that old, but 15 years, when somebody comes and say, hey, my grandma died, my mom died, this person died, and the last really good shot that we have of them
It's from the wedding.
It's from the wedding. Do you have a picture we can use for the funeral or for the thing?
Yeah, I mean, as someone who recently lost my parents, I've been going through my wedding photos, but also, like, I get that all the time, and sometimes sooner than you think. Like, I had one from last year who contacted me, and like the bride's dad had like suddenly passed away, and she was like, these photos from the wedding are like the best photos we have of him ever, but are also, he's having so much fun.
He looks the best.
Right. He's just like, you can tell, like, these are very natural, and like, and that makes, like, for me as a wedding photographer, that's like I feel like it's one of my most important jobs is documenting that stuff.
And you don't realize how important it is until the first time when somebody hits you with how important it is, right?
Right.
And so, that was kind of one of those things to where, and I use this platform as senior photographers, when we talk to junior photographers or people who are just getting in, because I remember 10 years ago or even 15 years ago, when there was a lot of vitriol for the digital Debbies and the digital Dans and the Mom Tog and Missy Mwack and all these other things going on. And now the industry has changed so much because of these people coming in and coming out of the industry, and some people even coming back in the industry, and that we still have that same responsibility with other photographers that we do with our clients. And so I thought that was a really good thing, because I mean, like that dude could have went a totally different way. Like, hey, I mean, you see what happens in LA, right? When somebody doesn't like what you say or what you do, right? I could have got rocked.
Right.
Too soon. So that being said, it was cool. Like that being in the pit, being with, seeing the fashion design. I'm like, you know what? I want to get back and start doing more fashion, stuff like that. The challenge is because I told myself that 2025, I was planning to retire from consumer photography, as I call it, in 2025, right? Like that's the goal. And so, that doesn't mean I'm going to retire from photography. It just means I want to do more of what I really want to do. I want to produce, print, and if you like what I produced and printed, then you buy it, right? And so now I'm headshots, boudoir, and commercial / fashion stuff. And 12 years ago, when I was in Jacksonville, I just came out of the Navy and everything. You know what I was doing? Headshots, boudoir, and then fashion stuff, whatever. And that's what and that's why I said it's come around full circle, because I have moved 5 places in the past 10 or 12 years. So since I was in the Navy, I was in Jacksonville, right? So 2014, I moved to Miami. 2016, beginning of that, I moved to Atlanta. Opened up a studio there, got contracted out, and moved to Charleston in 2016. 2019 moved back down to Tampa, and then last year moved out here to California. So, and every time I move, I got to start over.
Yeah, it's a new. We've talked about this before, like when you were on, like like kind of going on the road with your like the business aspect of being all over the place. And I mean, honestly, in the time that we've known each other, everyone's like, so where are you now? Are you on the West Coast or East Coast? Yeah, it's that sort of like reestablishing yourself each place that you go. And it's funny that you mentioned like coming full circle. It's like I've found myself, I've been doing this for 22 years, and like recently have found myself like kind of coming back to some of those things that I did before I started doing weddings. And yeah, I mean, there's a comfort in it. There's sort of it's in coming back to something that you used to do when you were less experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come back to it years later and you're like, oh, I see this in such a different way now than I did when I was starting out. Because when I was starting out, I was looking at this as, oh, this is how I make money. Or like this is something that I had a strong interest in, and it doesn't make money. But there's whatever the reason was you started doing it, you come back and you're like, oh, I like that sort of colored the way that I did this
Right.
when I was doing it years ago. And then you come back to it later when you're like more experienced. You're like, oh, huh, interesting. I have a new perspective on this type of work.
And what is nice about that too as well is that with my proteges, I have a saying that said like, well, I already said about looking like a professional photographer, but I would say it's not about the gear until it's about the gear.
Yeah,
because we all have gas, right? And those who know me long enough know that I believe in having a four-wheel drive vehicle, right? Most of us will never ever need a four-wheel drive vehicle until that one time that you need a four-wheel drive.
You need a four-wheel drive vehicle,
right? And so when you get gas early on in your career, you try to chase everything because you think it's going to make you a better photographer.
Mm.
As you get older, you get gas because you think it's going to make photography easier. And so it's I just set up. I had my canned about 6 years ago. I finally got to my canned headshot mobile. I can take it anywhere in the world. Headshot station, and I used to call it my $10,000 setup. Right now, thanks to medium format, it's now my $25,000 setup. But with the exception of the camera, the setup is exactly the same setup I was using 6 years ago. And when I mean that it's exactly the same setup, I learned to buy better. Don't just get everything that you want. Buy better. So I'm still using the same
quality.
Bogan Manfrotto heavy aluminum tripod. All right. I'm still using my company, I think they're out of Ohio, my eyeliner, right? The official, the Larry Peters. And the thing about it is Larry Peters, for those who, there's a guy in Jacksonville who had the original, it looks like a steel pan drum or whatever, original eyeliner that's actually really metal, right? Still using that. Still using my Savage collapsible backdrop, which I probably need to get a new one, right? Still, and it's just more efficient now, right? The only difference is that my back stands are changed, right? So why I bring that up is that now that we're here, I tell guys now, and I don't want to go too much in gear, but like when we use like Pro Photo or something like that, it's not because you're buying Pro Photo because of the Pro Photo name. It's that, hey, there's one knob or there's like two buttons and that's it. I don't have to go through a whole bunch of button and menus. Could this be better? Yes. Is there a $300 solution out there that makes the job more fun than this $3,000 solution? Yes. I don't want to mention any companies that start with G, but not until they want to sponsor me. But that being said,
same,
right? I try to explain to them is like the easier that you can find light acts and look what it does, the less and more simplified your setups become. And then when you do the why was I about to call this guy Rand McNally? When you do the Joe McNally, right?
Because he's all over the globe.
And you add the 47 speed lights to the shot, you realize that he's just adding one speed light 47 times, right? Like each speed light has a purpose, right?
Right.
And so this is kind of where I say, like, coming back around, every time I do a shoot, it has a purpose. I learn more of the business. I don't give a discount on my minimum, so to speak.
Right.
I give a discount on my value add-ons, so the things that don't cost me, right? The things
Or
that
the things that, like, you've already gotten somebody to, like, oh, I'm getting this more premier package or whatever, like, then I'm a little more likely to be a little flexible on that price, because you're already investing in me.
right.
You're like, understanding that there's a minimum to this.
An online gallery doesn't cost me more to give it to you,
Right.
right? But I charge for an online gallery. So I'll tell you what, if you book me for 2 more hours, I'll throw the online gallery in for free, and that saves you a couple $100 off of that. You know what I mean? Just like little things like that. Yes, I know that's a trade secret. I'm sorry that.
Well, I
But
mean, it does cost people things. I mean, like, it costs you whatever if you have a subscription or whatever it is, like, it does cost money. It's a, but I think that something that you mentioned about, like, the gear is not going to make you a better photographer. I think that that's something that I just saw an article on one of those websites that I will not mention, that starts with a P and has another P in it. And
the guys down in Puerto Rico.
yeah, the Metamixel.
Yeah.
It was like, a Canon R5 is not going to make you a better photographer. No, nothing is going to make you a better photographer. There's no piece of gear that's going to make a better photographer. And it took me a while to sort of, like, I had gear envy as well as gear acquisition syndrome. I had gear envy syndrome. I'd be like, oh man, all this stuff. Like, I don't need all that stuff. What is the job I'm trying to do, or what are the photos that I'm trying? I always said to somebody, like, I had people asking me questions like, oh, what gear should I get? I'm like, what are the photos that you're trying to produce? And I can tell you that there's probably some things that will work better for that.
Right.
But who am I to say, like, you shouldn't be shooting portraits with a 35 millimeter if in your head
You have a look for it.
that's the vision. Like, that, you have to think about your vision before you, like, find the things. And I think that it's good for people to sort of, like, play around for a little while before they start going, like, okay, this is what my kit is going to look like. And I have different kits for different things. And that's the thing. Like, I go through, like, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm trying to accomplish with this shoot. This is what I'm taking with me. And I have people who've, like, oh man, I'm so jealous of your gear bag. And I'm like, well, that's a 20-something year gear bag.
Exactly.
And
you're
that's
the ones got kicked out of that gear bag.
right. There are plenty of things. I was going through my basement, and I was tossing a lot of things. I found, I don't know if you remember the old the ring flash that you attached, like, the speed light to. You remember those?
Yeah, the ones that they use like pretty much for CSI type things or whatever. Or you talking about the one that just goes to the top and it goes around the lens.
The Z flash, yes.
Yeah.
That was the Z flash. There was an Orbis, which is another one that attached via a bracket to, like, your regular speed light, and had like it's got, like, mirrors or whatever.
Right.
I was like, I found one in my, like, box of, like, old gear that I don't no longer use. And I was like, man, I wasted like $150 on that thing, but I used it for a while.
I have an Alien B ring flash that's in the box right now. I have not used it in probably about a good 4 or 5 years.
That was my go-to photo booth.
Oh wow, I remember,
like, for weddings, because I just, like, set it up on a tripod and put the reflector on it. Yep, and that's it.
Like, and I'm about, and I keep telling myself, I'm like, you know what, this year I'm going to use it just for 2 reasons. One, I'm going to use it because I haven't used it. Let me see what kind of creativity I've gained in the past, like, 4 or 5 years. And 2, right now nobody's using one, so the images are going to look different than everybody else's images right now.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. It's like, I look at that and I'm like going, man, there were a lot of times I didn't take that out anywhere to go, like, shoot out on location, because I didn't have, like, the backpack, like, power pack that used to go. I'm like, now I've got, like, little battery packs. I'm sure could, like, power that thing, and I could put that in my bag and just be like, beep, beep, beep.
what's so funny, I learned this, and I'm going to give Jerry G some credit on this, about staying away from fetish designs in your wedding albums, right? So
Yeah,
as I'm
well,
showing my protege, like, obviously my photography has gotten better over the years, right? But I showed her a wedding album that I designed before going to the print competition in 2015 and going after the print competition in 2015, two different albums.
two
And so
different things.
what's so funny is I'm opening this thing up and I see so many sepia tones. I see
Mm.
so many, color sepia, black and white on the same page or on the same spread. And what broke my heart more than anything else, I have this beautiful black and white image with a blue bottle.
The selective coloring.
A selective color, like looking like the diamond, what the hope, not the hope diamond. What's the diamond in Titanic?
Oh, the heart of the ocean.
The heart of the ocean. It's looking like the heart of the ocean, right? And I like, and what makes it so bad is I still like the shot, but I know that it's a crappy shot, right? Because of the selective color. I know it's dated. I should say that. I know it's dated.
I have one like that. It's that was this the bride was outside, like getting out of the limo, and it was pouring rain outside, and she had this red umbrella on and ruby slippers. Like her shoes were like bright red. And I did one that was black and white. It is just the umbrella and just her shoes that are in red. And this is like, I think 2006, maybe 2005. And I look back at that and I'm like, oh, that's kind of terrible. But then I remember she was an illustrator. She illustrated children's books, and the only color in them was red.
It was red.
It's why she had like roses, and like why red was so prevalent in her. Like, it was just black and white, but like, and it was like The Girl in the Red Shoes was the name of the series of books that she illustrated, and I was just like, it meant something to her. I normally wouldn't have done that, and I was like, I think back, I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I still kind of like that shot, even though it seems dated to terrible to anybody who doesn't know this, who anybody who knows the doesn't know the situation is like, that's not good. But like, I know for her that was something for her.
Yeah.
But yeah, never do that again. And it's sort of like I got out of that whole fad thing. Like I my wife tells me that I eschew fads and trends to a point where it's almost detrimental to the business side. It's like, people want this, and I'm like, yeah, but are they going to want it in 5 years? Like, that's the thing. That's I'm always going for timeless.
And so going back to what you were saying, like once again, now I know we're talking about, like, so the one thing I like about the Fuji camera is the Fuji treatment. So whatever you want to do to the whatever their timeless filters, whatever you want to call it, their color profiles.
Right.
Well, you talk about gear envy, and I'm fortunate to have the GFX that I do, but it's like there's still a camera that I want, and the camera that I want is only for one reason only, which is the Z9, right? And that's only because of the dual video output, right? Or the dual sensor output, I should probably say. Right. Now, if Nikon turned around and said, hey, we have a $3,000 camera that only gets 5 frames per second, not 160 frames per second.
Right.
But it has
a lower end version. Right.
I'll get
the functionality.
Right.
It's the functionality. I think that's the thing that, like I was saying before, like, I think that's the thing that a lot of younger photographers or people like who are in the early stages of their career as a photographer tend to forget about, is that there's, like, what is the functionality? And it's something that Rob Hall always says to me, is it done with intention?
Right.
Is it done with intention, or are you just trying to like do the thing because you think, like, that whole trend? And I think has it stopped? The blurry photos, the autofocus photos, there was this whole trend like within the last couple of years where there's a lot of like autofocus stuff. I have some photos in my portfolio that are not perfectly sharp and crisp. Right. There's some motion blur. or there's something going on, something that's like slightly out of focus, whatever. And for me, that is because emotionally there's value to that photo, or it was something I did on purpose. But you see a lot of these photos, I think it was because people were like, oh, I'm going to set this to aperture priority, and not thinking about the shutter, and you get these like totally out of focus, like blurry pictures because
And see, for me,
it's like on
it was
1/50th.
for me it was because, and this is the reason why you get a good second shooter. It was because I was usually on my third Red Bull, right? And when you go low and you're trying to drag a shutter, and it's like, oh my gosh, you get that man
Yeah.
some Jiffy Pop. So, you know, and they're like, oh man, these look so nice. I'm like, thank God it's flash, you know, I mean, to stop
Yeah.
that motion, you know what I mean? So yeah.
Second curtain sink.
But yeah, I just want to touch on that because, you know, and I know we're running short on time, but like the whole part about doing photography, I think as you get older, I think a lot of photographers, about 5 to 10 years, somewhere in that window, I want to say most of us become burned out. I don't want to say all of us, but most of us become burned out, and we get to a point to where we're only doing it because we get paid. We're like we go full Marshawn Lynch beast mode and be like I'm just here so you know I don't get fined. I'm just here to keep the money. I mean that's it, right? You know, I don't want to be at your wedding, but you know I'm here because, and you don't know which, but that photographer can look back over their catalog and tell you during this time of my life, I was depressed, I was sucked, I was going through a divorce, my parents died, my dog, something happened, right? During this time, or this was the time that my son was born, or my daughter graduated out of high school. And I think what ends up happening, right? To kind of little segue is that we get so involved in the technicals, what other people think, what the things that really don't bring us, one, and I'm going to say this, money, but two, that doesn't really bring us joy to enjoy. There was a big push, there still is a big push of making six figures as a photographer, right? And six figures hits differently in San Diego or New York or DC than it does in freaking Atlanta or Charleston or whatever. There's a difference of life.
Cost
got a
of
chance
living and doing business is different in different places.
Right. I got a chance to speak to Lindsay Adler a few years back when she talked to ASMP, and she talked about like her a little bit how she balances her life and and everything. But she does a lot of teaching now too as well, along with her own personal shoots. That kind of gives her a little bit of balance, right? For me though, most people that know me know that I do government contracting. I do, so I get money on one side, I get money on the other, because at the end of the day, Wells Fargo doesn't care where it comes from. They just want my money, right?
Right.
And so
as long as you're paying the bills.
As long as you're paying the bills. So for me, that's a big thing to know that, hey, you may have a 9 to 5, and my boss on my 9 to 5, he didn't like my answer when so we had a big boss come from DC out here to San Diego, and he's like, oh, so you do photography on the side? And I'm like, no, I do this.
No. This is my side job.
And he's like, and he was perplexed. I was like, because either the day after I quit or the day after you fire me, guess what I'm gonna be doing? This, right? And changed his whole mindset to the whole thing, because my mindset was always there. Even when I was in the military, I was like, hey, this is on the side, right? This is what my livelihood is, my career, right? Lifelong thing. And what ends up happening now is that we learn over time, and for a lot of us photographers, we got into photography because it was a passion, or because it was a hobby, or like me, I got into photography because I joined the yearbook and newspaper business staff in high school, and all the pretty girls were in the yearbook, and so I'm like, hey, I'm
gonna get involved.
Right, I'm gonna get involved, what I mean, for whatever the reason, but it was fun. And so now come back to 2022 to say, okay, you're shooting 30 times, let's say you do 30 weddings a year or 40 weddings a year. You haven't chose to outsource because you don't want to give that control up. So you're working 40 hours to 60 hours a week on photos. You're in front of the clients every week. You're marketing, and then you're getting your feathers ruffled on Facebook by other people, right? You know, and then you're mad because you don't have time to TikTok, right? Or you're like me, you're like, you know what?
Oh,
I got 30 minutes to be on Facebook, but I don't got 30 minutes to go to the gym because I could be on Facebook while I'm on the toilet. That's the big difference.
yes.
But right. But you need something to kind of bring yourself back down, right? Some me time. And especially when we get into the point to where we monetize every hobby that we do. That's where we are.
That's the side hustle like
Right.
mentality. And I think that's it's interesting that you bring that up. It's like I have probably been burned out 2-3 times in my career for different reasons. Not necessarily burned out like all of the times, but there were probably 2 times that I felt like, oh man, am I going to keep doing this? But I found that there were things that I could do, like you were saying, like you're doing things that don't bring you joy. I love the actual day of a wedding. Like it's love it. That is so much fun for me. And most of the time, like obviously there are times when it's not been great, but like for the most part, that part of it I enjoy. And it's finding the other things that really make me happy and doing things, even photography related, that I don't have to like, oh, need to get paid for this.
Exactly.
Or it's the other things that I do with my life that I don't have to get paid for. I ain't getting paid for this. But I enjoy talking to other photographers.
Yes.
I love talking to other photographers, and I love like helping people out and like giving people pointers and like things like that, but it's because I enjoy that. That's what brings me joy. And also hiking with my dog. Like I've made that since the pandemic, like going on a hike, I go like 3-4 times a week. And it's just like, it helped me stay sane during the pandemic. And it's also just something like I get out of my head. I don't like check my phone. I'm not listening to music. I'm not doing anything. I'm just like in that moment, enjoying myself.
And
I think it's important
because now I'm into pizza. Like I was saying, making pizzas. And
it's a delicious thing to bring you joy.
You're right. And everybody loves pizza. If I can make a taco pizza, I mean, like, and I'm not talking about like a taco toppings on pizza. I'm talking about like a chalupa, but it's really a pizza, that type thing on it. That is something I'm beyond. But I like experimenting. Pizza is so much like I'm a baker. I love baking. I love making cheesecakes. I just don't have the time for a lot of things. But the process of making a pizza, right? Of how
my birthday's coming up, and I love cheesecakes. So just
of how you ferment. I use a poolish now when I'm building it out. Not just going straight. So there is a time process that goes into it. I'm experimenting right now with different types of beer and alcohol in my doughs, right? To
nice.
see how the yeast go on. Right now, I have a milk stout porter that is doing it, and it smells good.
Which one are you making yourself?
Dragon milk.
New Holland. Oh, that's the best.
Right.
Oh my God, I love it. I would suggest also, if you can find it, it's not. It's we have Belhaven, which is a Scottish beer. It's one of my favorites. It's like drinking a Guinness without the bitterness.
Okay.
And it's really nice, and so it's hard to find.
It's funny you say that, because there's a Jamaican one called Dragon Stout. So like, why I started cooking with cast iron skillet, because I want to start camping, and so that if anything I can make in a cast iron skillet, I can make when I go camping, right? So why I started experiment with beer is because flour is cheap, and I use all-purpose for the most part, all-purpose flour. Even though this one has a mix of all-purpose and 00, but I use all-purpose flour, right? Is because when I go on vacations and I take trips, it's something that I can make almost anywhere in the world, because the beer is usually safer to drink than the water, right?
Yep.
So
fermentation process.
Yeah, I tried Red Stripe. I want to get some Dragon Stout, which is very sweet compared to a Guinness. Guinness for me is like one of the most bitter ones. I'm not a Guinness
fan. This Belhaven, the Belhaven Wee Heavy, it's not technically a stout.
Right.
It's like almost a stout, and it has a little bit of sweetness to it. like not, it's not overpoweringly sweet. It's kind of like an aftertaste of sweetness, but it's super super tasty. It's one of my favorite beers.
And if it
I would
doesn't
definitely
have
recommend it.
the 119 and a half second pour that is required of Guinness, right? Like not 120, 119 and a half seconds for the Guinness, right? Then the Guinness doesn't taste like how it's supposed to taste, right? So,
Right.
but like I do these things now, and especially for, and I'm not just trying to single women out, but especially for male photographers. Male photographers do not have the same exact emotional mental health network that a lot of women photographers, and I know a lot of male photographers who annually, Zach has talked about it several times about going through depression annually, like after the wedding season is over, that lull, depression is a real thing. A lot of male photographers go through a lot. They stress out and they don't have the same level of support amongst each other. And I always just use this to say, like, hey, if you need to go see a therapist, if you need to go see mental health, if you can't, find something outside of what you have to do your day to day. The other thing, which is going back to real quick, I've started doing golf. Right, I haven't played golf in 15 years.
Well, I was gonna say, you said, oh, maybe you thought I was Ken Griffey Jr. I was gonna say Carl Weathers.
Or Carl Weathers, right? I've gotten that before, actually. I have gotten there, right? But with golf, and what's so funny is that Chip Dizzard, he was at WPPI, and he like, hey, anybody want to go out and go play some golf? So I went out and go play golf. I hadn't played probably since freaking Dubai in 2023 or 2003. And I was like, man, I missed this game. I don't know why I stopped playing it. So went out, bought me some golf bags and stuff like that. Put my logo on her, so it is a business expense, right? Now, but what's so funny about it is Gino, which is one of my proteges in South Carolina, Gino Porter. He has been playing golf for a while because at his 9 to 5, it kind of helps, right? And so now I'm trying to convince my wife to allow me once a month or once every other month to be able to take just a golf trip, like a mental health break, hop on a $80 flight somewhere. It doesn't matter where, because almost everywhere has golf courses. And go for a weekend, Saturday, go play 1 or 2 rounds, hang out with, 1 or 2 other photographers and just chill, come back on Sunday and then enjoy the weekend, especially when you're not doing wedding photography. You can do that on a Saturday.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, I've actually, since the pandemic and like they opened up the golf courses, I hadn't been golfing in a while, and I picked it back up. I used to golf all the time as a kid and in my 20s to go golfing until I moved to New York. And whenever I go home to Michigan, I would like always like get in a couple of rounds while I was home. That sort of fell off, and like I think I can't remember when it was. It may have been 2019, actually, like right before the pandemic. I was like, I'm gonna start golfing again. Pick up a set of clubs. I would go out occasionally. Now I'm like, a member of like all the there are 6 golf courses within like 5 minutes of where I live. One of them's a county course. Man, like you can come out here, we'll go golfing, man. There's a lot of places. I'm like a member of like the county system. They have like 3 or 4 great golf courses,
right?
And you can get on pretty like during the week pretty easily. Weekends, depends. But like since I'm a member, I can like schedule 10 days ahead of time if I want to go on the weekend. But yeah, it's like for me, it's very relaxing. I totally understand what you're saying, and there is like even I think it was 2011, which was the year I got married. I did 40 weddings.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I was sort of like, I have to limit the number of weddings I do, both for my physical and my mental health. I needed to like say like, okay, 25 is probably where I'm going to max out, because otherwise, I can't, from a business perspective, I can't give everybody the level of service that I personally want to give, and how my business plan works out, like like how I treat my clients. I want to give them that personal attention. Once I get over 25, it becomes less,
Right.
I'm less able to
diminishing returns.
Right. And it depends on how big the wedding is, how much is involved for me. But and that's where I kind of like inflexible would maybe do more, but like it's also so I can have those sometimes have a weekend where I can just like go and golf or do something with my wife on a weekend, when there's, instead of like, I'll see you in, October when wedding season is over.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta keep track of those sorts of things. I
Yeah,
don't know how you feeling about that. Do you have anything to add to that, or?
well, like I said, like no, that's the big thing I want to talk about is that just having the hobbies, having a way for us to just to kind of decompress. It doesn't have to be something extra. Like if you said hiking, it could be going hiking. It can go camping. It could be just hey, you know what, seeing a new spot, but something that is not going to be monetized and that you feel the stress of even doing this and like I said to you earlier, I'm going to I'm starting to put more of my one-on-one stuff on YouTube, not because of quote unquote monetization, just because it's like, hey, you know what, I want to just to be able to get this stuff out and have a library that I have to do less. I don't say less one-on-one coaching, but it's already there
Right,
because the
I can
stress,
direct you to this.
I can direct you to it, and be more efficient. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of us, I think if you're in this industry for anything over 20 years, I mean, there's very few people that have been in careers 20 or 30, 40 years, unless you're like a congressman or something like that. But anything that's over 20 years is a good run. And I think that, when you start off in something in 2020 and you're sitting here at 2025, 2030, 2035, 2040, right? You've gone 40 years. That 40th year should feel like a celebration. And actually, really, anything before that should feel like a celebration,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, unfortunately, my 20th anniversary was in 2020, so it wasn't the celebration that I wanted it to be.
right. So, like I said, as we move forward, I just don't want to be the bitter old guy. Hey, Gary Fong, I don't want to be the bitter old guy that that is really, really smart, really, really this, really, really that, but still doesn't feel like they're having fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I like it's about at a point you should be having fun at a certain time, and if it's not fun, and I think that's the one of those things to where whether it's a 9 to 5 job at a certain point in your life, you shouldn't be afraid. I say this all the time to everybody. The one thing you should never be afraid of is getting fired. And the reason why is this. I call it the Bill Belichick rule.
wear a sweatshirt.
Yeah, I'm about to say, no, it's not cheap. The reason why I call it the Bill Belichick rule is this. Bill Belichick arguably is the most successful coach in football history, right? Not just NFL or college, but football history, period. And he was fired from the worst organization in the
Right.
NFL.
The Cleveland Browns. Well,
Browns.
I would say that the Detroit Lions are up there too. So
some might say the Jets, right? I would say the Chargers, but that's just me. But right, and the thing about it is this: as much as he gets hated on, if you are a Cowboy fan, which is the Cowboys, most people hate the Cowboys. Jerry Jones would hire Bill Belichick tomorrow if he could, right? And
absolutely.
Most people would be happy with that. So that's why I say at the end of the day, do what you love because you love it, right? Tom Brady came back out of retirement 40 something days because he realized that, this is what I love.
Because he's going to Miami. He's going to Miami.
He's already in Florida. He's already retirement state already, right?
Right.
Coach K came back out of retirement. Oh, that's too soon. Is that too soon
now? It's only been 2 days.
Because he couldn't live with the fact that his first loss and his last loss came from the same team, right? So even what's the guy, the punchy guy, Mayweather. Yeah. Mayweather's boxing again sometime this year, and it's for money, but it's something that he's good at. He doesn't even need the money. It just keeps him relevant because it's not a title that counts, right? Yeah. So my protege now, and I'm gonna leave with this. My protege now, right? Awesome, amazing young lady. And I was straight with her because I said that you're gonna have life changes. She's 30, in the mid-30s. You're gonna have life changes in the next 5 years that may interfere with your photographic journey, right?
Right.
It is what it is. But like I told her, I said, how you do that. If you know this at this point, you mitigate for that. I told her, I said, like, if it was me, so this is good, bad advice for you people that's watching and listening. So photographers in general say, do not practice on clients, right? So if it's your first wedding, do not charge for your first wedding. I don't believe in doing that, right? I believe in the streetwalker mentality that you know, every time you're out, it's not practice, you're actually doing a job. I told her, hire a second photographer who is a primary photographer,
Right.
and pay them accordingly, right? Because be your own second photographer. And I told her, I said, if you're your own second photographer from day one, it's a lot more fun than worrying about what everything else, because you're catching all the good shots. You're actually catching all the money shots, right? You know, you're catching
the pressure is off.
The pressure's off. And you can always fire that first photographer if it doesn't meet up, right? So and this way that you can scale. I think that's the hardest thing for us photographers to do, is to be able to learn how to scale, and how for us to learn how to make money when we're sleeping.
Scale to success. Like I always tell, one of my thing I always tell people when they ask me for, like, when I'm giving business advice, whatever, scalability of your work, your business is one of the most important factors, because I've seen, not only like firsthand, but like secondhand, I've seen people go from, again, it's a wedding photographer. He went from like shooting 10 weddings a year to shooting 60 because he got some like big write up in a bunch of magazines or whatever. He's like, oh, I'm doing 60 to 70 weddings a year now, and I'm traveling all over the country. You know, and the year before he was doing 10 weddings. It's like, This is going to end badly. And it did. Like, I heard tons of horror stories, and he was charging, like, he went from charging, you know, like $2,000 from when he was doing 10 a year to charging $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 when he's doing 70 a year. And he lost tons of people's photos. He would cancel on people at the last minute because he got another job that paid more.
Right.
It was just like that.
He was never able to scale. He didn't scale it up. And so, you know, I will ask this question though. Man, I had this question to ask you, and it has to do more so along the lines of, what is Casey doing for the next year?
Case for me, I'm doing I'm trying to bring more of this stuff into my life. I started the Nerdy Photographer because it was sort of a way to, because I love building things myself, love figuring things out, love showing other people how to do stuff, like, and talking to people. So I want to find a way. Like, I feel like I sort of fell towards that money making mentality. Like, I got to do things that get attention. I'm like, no, this is not necessarily about getting attention. This is about doing the things that I enjoy doing. And I think that you'll probably get more attention if I like just the joy that I have for it in the long run. But from a business perspective, it's more about focusing on like quality as opposed to the quantity of things. And I think that the sparseness of the pandemic kind of pushed me back towards that. I got to get more. Right. I got to get more stuff. I got to get more jobs. And then, like, I've recently been coming around to the fact of, like, no, it's not about that. It's not about that. Because I think I was looking at it, and last year, while not a banner year for me, and the number of weddings, the money I brought in was actually on the level of pre-pandemic.
That's good.
Because I was hitting the right things.
Right.
I was focused on the right stuff, and I was getting the right jobs. I sort of like took a moment and went, oh, yeah, that's where I need to be aiming. And then I also get more time to, you know, do the things like going golfing and, you know, spending time with, you know, my wife. So that's the bonus.
Speaking of wives, we have a trip that we have to take to go on the road to LA. But if you're in Southern California, go ahead.
One thing before we back up, just go ahead. I will edit that out.
Right. No, I was like, if you're in Southern California though, be sure to come by and stop by. Don't do like, you know, some other people that were here this past weekend. Some other Goorin family. I will not mention Rakita on this, but go ahead and, you know, make sure to stop by, man, because I don't come to New York, New Jersey.
Sorry, my dog just got home.
Oh,
from daycare. I gotta let her in. Sorry about that.
yeah, that just gave you
Sorry.
that. No, that's okay. But
Yeah.
when you, like I said, when you get a chance, be sure to come on down here. It's like I've liked Southern California. Southern California has been pretty good. The one thing everybody will tell you, it is expensive. We're going through a heat wave this week, 90 degrees, 95 degrees this week.
We've not been going through a heat wave. It's been like 50 degrees and raining all week.
Right, so there's no rain. Like, I mean, it's supposed to rain this year. I was telling my wife, I'm worried this year because we had some good rains, but not a lot of rain. And so there's a lot of greenery that's out there right now, but with it getting this hot, this quick, it
Right,
sets
this
up
early.
for the wildfires out here. So
Yeah, I mean, I want to get out there. It's been a few years since I've been out to California. I really would like to get out there. I will come see you if I am out there. The other thing, if you come out here, if you are ever find yourself out here, we're going golfing. I'll set it up. And I think that's a great place to wrap up. And I have our useless information for this episode. Pick this one out specifically for you. Did you know that the McDonald's drive-through and in essence all drive-throughs are due to the military?
no, I did not know that.
The first McDonald's drive-through was installed in a restaurant based in Sierra Vista, Arizona, located near the Fort Huachuca military installation.
Uh-huh.
I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. Military rules forbade soldiers from wearing their military uniforms in public, and they weren't going to change into civilian clothes just to grab a burger and run back to the base. So the restaurant manager came up with a solution of cutting a hole in the wall and allowing military members to pick up their orders without getting out of their car.
I did not know that. That's where
Yeah,
a lot of stuff.
that's
Right.
wild and wacky stuff.
So while you're talking about the McDonald's, two things. One, when I was stationed as a cool kid at North Island, Naval Station North Island, back in like 2001, 2000, around there, it was one of the first test kitchens for the McDonald's McGriddle. Right. So we were getting 99-cent McGriddles like long before anybody even knew what a McGriddle was, which I think is one of the best sandwiches that McDonald's has probably introduced in the past 20, 25 years. But McDonald's trivia,
better than the McDonald's BLT
or the McDLT.
McDLT, yes.
McDLT was that it was styrofoam. That's what killed it, right? The styrofoam. Yeah. But did you know that it was a 21-year-old secretary that actually named the Big Mac?
Really?
Yes. Esther Glickstein, and she was the marketing guru, right? Or not marketing secretary. She was the secretary for the marketing gurus, right? When they were trying to come up with a name to combat the first name sandwich, which was the Whopper.
Right.
Right.
See, McDonald's has the Big Mac. McDowell's has the Big Mick.
The Big Mick, exactly. Right. So but with that is and I learned that from an amazing docuseries, The Food That Built America.
Yes.
Which is a great docuseries. That's, if you're anybody that wants to go out there and watch that, the entire series of the blank that built America, the man who built America, and those have been so good, and it shows you what the competition is like, the things that we take for granted.
We don't understand now all of the things that went into this stuff,
right?
Like to make these things that would just seem like normal everyday stuff now. And I think that, I mean, I don't know, at least me, I was talking to my wife about this, but how I went from VHS, landline, on the wall phone, and all this other stuff to like CDs, DVDs, and like then to digital. Like I've been around for all that. And like kids who now are like, digital is just this is just how things are. Like streaming is the way that things always have been.
Think about this. Who has the patent for the digital camera? Kodak Eastman.
NASA. I think they sent it to
Kodak Eastman. Kodak Eastman has the patents. Like so they were making money for the longest time off of digital cameras that they didn't sell. But they doubled down on film. right? Which kind of hurt them a little bit. Now, what was funny is this: if they had came up with a digital preview for a film that was automatically read by their cameras, because you remember they used to have the APS, that's what started the APS, film format. If they had a digital preview that was automatically read, that way that you could see what you were going to shoot before you shot it, but it was still going to be on a semi non-destructible medium like film, right? They would have been around long, and those cameras right now would be such a nostalgic piece right now.
I'll give you a hint. Something. Sometimes I shoot stuff digitally and then shoot it on film, just to make sure that I got it set up.
Of course. I mean, the reason why I love Nikon for the longest, right? I have an F100. Everybody asks me like, why did you choose the F100? I said two things. It has a TTL on there, so when I'm shooting my pro photo, right, I can shoot them with whatever D800, D810, or whatever. I know what settings I'm at. Right, because the settings are matching what it was in the camera, and I know that as soon as I put the light on there, boom, it's perfect, right? They're like,
the light setup is good. I just need to know what the settings worked.
You're such a great photographer.
Oh man, I'm giving away the secrets. Leighton, thank you so much for being on. Where can people find you? And you mentioned coaching. If people want to find you to do coaching, or just find you in general, where can they do that?
So
and there will be links to all this stuff.
You can find me at LeightonD.com, LeightonD.com. If you're on the Twitter, right, that's what the thing we call it, the Twitter, it's at LeightonD. If you're on the gram, it's at LeightonD Photo, or Facebook's at LeightonD Photo. That's photo spelled PHOTO as well. So just to make sure for those phonetic people. And even though the word phonetic is kind of not phonetic, but that's beside the point. So with that being said, that's the best places to find me. And if you look really, really hard, you may be able to find me on Cash App, Venmo, and Zelle.
And just send him money.
Just send me money.
Just send him money.
And that's all I have.
All right, man.
And for the people that will be watching.
Oh, for me.
For you, where can they find you at, Casey?
They can find the Nerdy Photographer at the Nerdy Photo on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Somehow blew up on TikTok recently and have thousands of followers there. So you can find me at the Nerdy Photo. If you're looking for my photography work, you can find me at KCF Photo on Twitter and Instagram, or at Fatchett.com on the internet, and nerdyphotographer.com for all of that stuff.
And I can see why the TikTok blew up, because it's the smooth voice.
Yeah, it's all about the voice. Actually, you know what happened was, I don't know if you have seen any of this stuff, because I usually post them to Instagram as well. It was actually me talking about how I would balance engagement rings on the wedding shoes.
I remember that.
It's got like somewhere over 250,000 views right now. Like, I was just like, that one, really? That's the one that, like,
it's funny because you're like, I don't know how. Like, I thought everybody did this, and then you realize, like, no, we just had like these like fishing wire.
Yeah, I think at the end there, where I was like, I did not know that. But I think that just I think that had a lot to do with it. But I was surprised at all of the like people commenting on my eyes. I'm just like, you have beautiful eyes. I was like, okay, thanks.
Nobody ever gives me compliment on my eyes. It's usually on those vampire teeth. So
no, like your eyes look like milk chocolate M&Ms.
Milk chocolate M&Ms. Wow, milk chocolate. Well, I've never had that. I'm going to try to see if I could use that as a pickup line. See if it.
All right.
Did anybody ever tell you?
I won't tell.
Come back with black eyes.
I won't tell Tiffany that you're doing that.
Yeah, I want to see how that works out. Now that we know what kind of lines I'm using, and then I'll blow up on TikTok and say how not to take pickup line advice from guys in the freaking neo. Or is they still called the tri-state area? Is that still?
Yes, the tri-state.
In the tri-state.
In the tri-state.
They took away my favorite bridge. My favorite bridge is gone now. Right?
Tappan Zee?
That the TZ. It's not a Cuomo or the.
I think they might rename it. Who knows? Like,
Right.
based
I'm
on how things are going,
I'm
they
like, yeah,
might rename it.
you go up to the TZ and then you go over there and you go do this and then you go in and like boom.
Well, they renamed the Triborough the RFK bridge. Nobody calls it the RFK bridge. Like, it's just like there's some, like, people change the names and stuff. People still refer to the Cuomo Bridge as the Tappan Zee. So it's like, even though they're like, it's the new Tappan Zee Bridge, but it's like, whatever, people don't care. Like, that's one of the things. I moved to the tri-state area in the 90s, and one thing I love about it is, like, people are unaffected by that sort of stuff. They just like, yeah, whatever. Like the 59th Street Bridge, I think they named it the Ed Koch Bridge at some point or whatever. Nobody calls it the Koch Bridge. Like, it's always the 59th Street Bridge.
It's funny because like New Yorkers argue over things like the two like when what's that sign up when they got the new area code and it's like, oh no, don't change the area code. He's like, oops.
I remember when that happened. I was in New York when that's like they started like adding like 917 and 646 and all of those, like, because mostly because of cell phones,
right?
And I still had a 212 number for my business, which was an answering service. It would forward to my phone and stuff, but I got rid of it a few years ago because it was just like, it's paying, like, I don't need to pay for this because nobody was calling. First of all, they would always email or text. So it was like, what's the point?
So do we still say 212 FU? Is that
yes? But do you know how much like credit I got, like credibility I had for having a 212 number, like for over 20 years? Like, people would just be like, oh, he's got a 212 number, man. He's been around for it's an old school, or primo. Like, you just had there's just the, I don't know. I asked the company, the phone, the answering service company, if I could buy the number off of them. Like, if there's some way for them to like port the number over to me. Like, no, we can't do that. And I was like, go to hell.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like 917, I think is now being more accepted now as an old school number, because it's like in Florida, you have 407. That's what I grew up. Right. Most people get 323, and I think LA is 321 compared to the old one.
810.
Yeah, so places like San Diego, we're still holding up the 619, but now you have the 858 and all this other stuff, and
it's a weird world we live in now, because everybody, all of the different numbers that like they have to accommodate for all of the different like cell phones and everything else. It's like, there's just my area of Michigan still has the same area code. There's like, they've not added enough.
To Michigan, man.
Right. Well, I moved out.
Were you a troll or were you
I was a troll. South Central. They actually have the South Central. Was how they referred to that area, like, because my dad was a state cop, and there was the South Central State Employees Credit Union. So as a white guy from Michigan, we're like, yeah, I'm from South Central.
Yeah, nobody. I mean, and we look, like, trust me, we always look for where we're going to move to next, right?
I think you like moving.
I do. I mean, like, as long as the witness protection program pays for it, it's pretty good, right? Oh, speaking of witness protection program, Saul season 5 is finally on Netflix, but season 6 comes out next week or
next week. It's all good, man.
Yes, it's all good, man. All right, but I'll let you go on that, man, because this is probably about a $1.45 on mine, and this is going to go up whenever you post this. This will go up shortly after that. On the tube, so
probably 2 weeks.
Refusal. Yeah, just
I'll let you know.
All right, appreciate it.
Take care, brother.
All right, you too.